Hey everyone, and welcome back to Stock Explorers. We like to take these deep dives into some really fascinating companies, and today we're looking at one that's been generating a lot of buzz lately, CRISPR Therapeutics.
Yeah, this one's really interesting. You might have heard about Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and his potential role in the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Well, if he's confirmed, there's news that he's planning to divest from some biotech companies, CRISPR being one of them.
Interesting connection for sure. But before we get into all of that, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and turn on those notifications so you don't miss out on any of our future deep dives. Okay, so CRISPR Therapeutics. This is a company that's right on the cutting edge of gene editing. And they're working to develop some truly groundbreaking therapies for all kinds of diseases.
Absolutely. And they're targeting a really broad range of conditions. We're talking everything from inherited blood disorders to cancer, even type 1 diabetes.
Really pushing the boundaries of what's possible with medicine. And they've already achieved a major milestone with Casgevy. This is their CRISPR-based therapy that's been approved for sickle cell disease and transfusion-dependent beta thalassemia.
And that's a huge deal for patients. Think about it. This is a one-time treatment that's been shown to reduce or even completely eliminate the pain crises that people with sickle cell disease have to endure. And for those with beta thalassemia, it can drastically reduce or eliminate their dependence on blood transfusions.
Life-changing stuff.
Yeah.
And the really exciting part is that Casgevy is now being rolled out globally.
Yeah. 45 treatment centers have already been activated worldwide, and about 40 patients have already started the cell collection process.
That's fantastic news. So more and more people are getting access to this potentially life-saving treatment.
And accessibility is key, right? It's
Yeah.
great to have these amazing therapies, but they need to reach the patients who need them.
Couldn't agree more. And it sounds like they're making progress on that front.
Oh, definitely CRISPR's partner on Casgevy, Vertex Pharmaceuticals. They've secured a reimbursement agreement with NHS England, which means that patients with beta thalassemia in England will have access.
Wow, that's huge.
It is, and they're working on similar agreements for sickle cell patients as well. Plus, Italy just approved an early access program for Casgevy. So yeah, it's definitely becoming more widely available.
That's amazing to hear. It's great to see that they're not just focused on the science, but also on making sure these treatments reach the people who need them most.
Absolutely. And they're also researching ways to further improve Casgevy, so even more patients can benefit in the future.
Always innovating. It's
Yeah.
incredible. But Casgevy is just the beginning. They're also working on some really exciting next-generation cancer therapies, CTX112 and CTX131.
Ah, yes, those are what we call allogeneic CAR T-cell therapies, which basically means they're made from donor cells. And that has some really interesting implications.
Like what?
Well, for starters, it could make them faster and more affordable to produce, compared to current CAR-T therapies, which rely on using the patient's own cells.
So it's a more efficient approach.
Exactly. And CRISPR has also engineered some very specific gene edits into CTX112 and CTX131 to make them even more potent and effective.
And how are the results looking so far? I was reading about the early results from the CTX112 phase 1 trial for high-risk lymphoma patients.
Yeah, those results are really encouraging. They found a 67% overall response rate in those patients, and 44% achieved complete remission.
Those are impressive numbers.
They really are. And what's even more remarkable is that one patient who received the lowest dose has been in complete remission for over a year.
That's incredible.
It is. Gives you a sense of the potential here.
Definitely. It's amazing to see how CRISPR is pushing the boundaries of cancer treatment. And that's not all right. They're also exploring CTX112 for autoimmune diseases, like lupus.
That's right. Updates on that front are expected around mid-2025.
Exciting times. So it seems like they're building this whole platform to fight various types of cancer and autoimmune diseases.
Exactly. The potential of this platform is vast. It could really revolutionize how we approach these diseases in the years to come.
It's incredible to think about. But CRISPR isn't just focused on cell therapies. They're also pioneers in vivo therapies, which are treatments that work directly inside the body.
Right, and that's a whole other level of innovation.
Absolutely. And I'm really fascinated by their work with CTX310 and CTX320. These therapies use lipid nanoparticles, which are basically these tiny delivery vehicles, to transport the gene editing tools directly to the liver.
The liver is a really interesting target because it plays a central role in so many bodily functions, including regulating blood lipid levels, and that's where CTX310 comes in. It targets a specific gene in the liver called ANGPTL3, which is key in managing those lipids.
What kind of results are they seeing?
Well, in preclinical studies, a single dose of CTX310 led to a long-lasting reduction in ANGPTL3 and triglycerides in primates for up to a year.
A year for just one dose.
That's right.
That's amazing.
It is. Imagine the potential for people with high cholesterol or other lipid disorders.
It would be a game changer for sure.
Absolutely. And CTX310 is already in a phase 1 trial for various lipid disorders.
So they're moving quickly.
They are. And there's even talk that CTX310 might be eligible for accelerated approval based on validated biomarkers. It's still under discussion, but the potential is definitely there.
That would be huge.
Yeah.
Okay, so CTX310 targets ANGPTL3 to manage lipids, but CTX320 takes aim at a different gene, right? What's the story there?
CTX320 targets the LPA gene, which produces a protein called apolipoprotein. This protein is a key component of something called lipoprotein A, or LPA for short, which is a major risk factor for cardiovascular disease.
I've heard of that. High LPA levels can be really dangerous.
They can. Millions of people worldwide are affected by it. And here's where it gets really interesting. In preclinical studies, a single dose of CTX320 led to a 95% reduction in LPA. That lasted for 2 years in primates.
95% reduction.
Yep.
And it lasted for 2 years.
That's what they found.
That's incredible, especially for people at risk for heart disease.
It's a really promising approach.
And is CTX320 in clinical trials as well?
It is. It's currently in a phase 1 trial for patients with elevated LPA.
Okay, so they have CTX310 and CTX320 for cardiovascular disease, but it sounds like there's even more in the pipeline.
There is. They have 2 more programs in preclinical development, CTX340 for resistant hypertension and CTX450 for acute hepatic porphyria.
So they're really tackling a diverse range of conditions.
They are. And both of those programs are expected to enter clinical trials in the latter half of 2025.
So a lot to look forward to. It's remarkable how quickly CRISPR is expanding their pipeline and tackling all these different diseases.
It's an exciting time to be following their progress.
It really is. Okay, so we've talked about their work in sickle cell disease, beta thalassemia, cancer, and cardiovascular disease. But let's not forget about their research on CTX211, which is focused on type 1 diabetes.
Yes, CTX211. This one has the potential to be truly revolutionary for type 1 diabetes patients.
In what way?
Well, it's an allogeneic, gene-edited stem cell therapy that's designed to enable patients to produce their own insulin again.
Wow. So instead of relying on insulin injections, their bodies could start producing it naturally again.
That's the goal.
That would be life-changing for so many people.
It would. Millions of people around the world live with type 1 diabetes, and this could give them a level of freedom they've never known before.
So could we potentially be talking about a cure for type 1 diabetes here?
That's the hope. It's still early days, but the potential is certainly there.
And what makes CTX211 so special?
Well, it's been engineered with some very specific gene edits that make the cells hypoimmune, which means they're less likely to be rejected by the body.
So that means patients would need to take immunosuppressant drugs.
Exactly. Which is a huge benefit because those drugs can have some pretty nasty side effects.
Makes sense. And where is CTX211 in the development process?
It's currently in phase 1 trials.
Okay, so still early stages.
Yeah.
But definitely something to keep an eye on.
Absolutely.
Are there any other approaches they're exploring for type 1 diabetes?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
They have multiple parallel efforts going on to develop even more advanced beta cell replacement products. That wouldn't require immunosuppression at all.
Wow. So they're really pushing the boundaries there.
They are. The potential impact on the lives of people with type 1 diabetes is truly mind-boggling.
It really is.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about all this incredible research. But research like this takes a lot of funding. So let's take a quick look at how CRISPR Therapeutics is supporting their work financially.
Sure. So CRISPR Therapeutics is primarily funded through collaborations with other companies, issuing shares, and convertible loans.
And are they generating any revenue yet?
Not from product sales just yet, but that's expected to change as Casgevy rolls out globally.
So that'll be a new revenue stream for them.
Exactly.
What about their current financial position? Do we know anything about that?
Yeah, they've got a pretty strong financial position with substantial cash and marketable securities on hand.
That's good to hear. It sounds like they have the resources they need to keep innovating
They
and hopefully bring these groundbreaking therapies to market.
Exactly.
So overall, what are your impressions of CRISPR Therapeutics as a company?
Well, they're clearly a leader in the rapidly evolving field of gene editing. What's really impressive is their diverse pipeline, their commitment to making these therapies accessible, and their strong financial position. It all points to a company with immense potential.
Couldn't agree more. And it's not just about the science, right? They're also raising important questions. about the ethical implications of gene editing.
Oh, absolutely. It's a very powerful technology. And with that power comes responsibility.
Exactly.
But the good news is that CRISPR is very aware of these ethical considerations, and they've been actively involved in discussions about how to ensure that gene editing is used safely, responsibly, and equitably.
That's really encouraging to hear.
It is.
Yeah.
They're taking their responsibility very seriously.
So it's not just about the science for them. It's about the bigger picture as well.
Precisely.
It's great to see a company that's thinking about these things. So before we move on to other areas of CRISPR's research, I'm curious, what aspect of CRISPR Therapeutics' work has stood out to you the most so far?
Yeah. What has piqued your interest? Let us know in the comments below.
We'd love to hear your thoughts.
It's amazing, isn't it, how they're using gene editing to address so many different medical challenges.
It really is.
You know, while their work on cell therapies is incredibly promising, I think CRISPR is also making some really significant strides with their in vivo treatments for cardiovascular disease.
Oh, for sure.
Yep.
They're really pushing the boundaries there.
Yeah.
Especially with those preclinical programs like CTX340 for resistant hypertension. That's an area that affects so many people and has such a huge impact on public health.
Yeah, it's a major risk factor for so many serious conditions, you know. Heart attacks, strokes, kidney disease, the list goes on.
And for people with resistant hypertension, managing it effectively can be really tough. Traditional medications don't always work, so that's where something like CTX340 could really make a difference.
Exactly. CTX340 targets the angiotensinogen gene, or AGT, which plays a really crucial role in regulating blood pressure. And what's fascinating is that by editing this gene, they're essentially trying to recalibrate the body's blood pressure control system.
Wow, so it's not just about masking the symptoms. It's about addressing the underlying mechanism that's causing the high blood pressure in the first place.
Precisely.
And what have they found so far?
Well, the results from the preclinical studies have been really promising. They've seen dose-dependent and lasting reductions in blood pressure in animal models.
That's encouraging.
Yeah. If those results translate to humans, it could be a game changer for people who haven't had success with the traditional treatments.
It would be incredible. So we have CTX340 for resistant hypertension, and then there's CTX450, which focuses on a rare group of genetic disorders called acute hepatic porphyria.
Oh, yeah. Acute hepatic porphyria, or AHP. It's a really, really challenging condition. These disorders cause a buildup of certain chemicals in the body, which can lead to these sudden and severe attacks of abdominal pain, neurological problems, all sorts of complications.
It sounds incredibly debilitating.
It is.
And I understand that current treatment options are pretty limited.
That's right.
So what CRISPR is doing with CTX450 could be really groundbreaking.
I think so, too.
It targets the ALAS1 gene, which is involved in the production of hemoglobin, which is a component of hemoglobin.
Right. Hemoglobin is essential for carrying oxygen throughout the body.
Of course.
Yeah.
So by targeting ALAS1, are they essentially aiming to reduce the production of those harmful chemicals that build up in people with AHP?
Exactly. And in preclinical studies, CTX450 has been shown to significantly reduce the levels of these chemicals in animal models.
That's really promising.
It is. It offers real hope for a potential treatment for this rare and often devastating disease.
It's remarkable to see how CRISPR is tackling both common and rare diseases. With this in vivo gene editing platform, the possibilities seem almost endless.
They really do.
And of course, we can't forget about their ongoing work in type 1 diabetes.
Absolutely. CTX211, as we discussed earlier, is designed to replace the damaged beta cells in the pancreas, allowing patients to produce their own insulin again.
Right. And they're also working on developing a beta cell replacement product. That wouldn't require immunosuppression at all. Imagine, no more daily insulin injections, no more worries about rejection, just a one-time treatment that restores the body's natural ability to regulate blood sugar.
It's a bold vision. But CRISPR has consistently shown that they're not afraid to push the boundaries of what's possible with gene editing technology.
That's for sure.
And it's not just about developing these incredible therapies. It's also about making sure that they're accessible to patients.
So important. We talked about that earlier. The reimbursement agreement for Casgevy in England is a huge step.
It really is. It shows that they're committed to working with healthcare systems around the world to make sure that their therapies are available to the people who need them most.
That level of commitment is truly inspiring.
It is.
When we take a step back and look at the big picture, CRISPR Therapeutics is undeniably a leader in this rapidly evolving world of gene editing. They have this diverse pipeline of potentially game-changing therapies. They're in a strong financial position, and they're dedicated to making these treatments accessible.
It all adds up to a company with immense potential.
I agree. And their work goes beyond just developing therapies. It's also raising some really important ethical and societal questions about this powerful technology.
Absolutely. CRISPR is very aware of this, and they've been really engaged in these discussions about the ethical implications of their work, ensuring that gene editing is used safely, responsibly, and equitably.
That's crucial.
It is. They understand the responsibility that comes with this kind of power.
It's reassuring to know that they're approaching it with a real sense of responsibility.
Yeah, absolutely.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into CRISPR Therapeutics, I'm left with a sense of awe and excitement for the future. It's incredible to think about what groundbreaking therapies might emerge from their research pipeline in the years to come.
You know, it's an incredibly exciting time for gene editing, and CRISPR Therapeutics is right at the forefront of this revolution. Their work has the potential to completely transform the landscape of medicine and offer hope to millions of people around the world.
What an amazing thought. Well said. Now, we've covered a lot of ground today, but we'd love to hear from you, our listener.
What aspect of CRISPR Therapeutics' work stands out to you the most? What has piqued your interest? What has piqued your interest? Let us know in the comments below.
We'd love to hear your thoughts. It's amazing to think about how much they've accomplished already, and they're really just getting started.
It's true. CRISPR is really rewriting the playbook of medicine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're not just treating symptoms, they're going after the root causes of disease at the genetic level. It's a whole new way of thinking about healthcare.
Absolutely. And this shift is happening across so many different areas, from their approved therapy for sickle cell disease and beta thalassemia, to their next generation cancer therapies, to these groundbreaking in vivo approaches.
Yeah, it feels like they're constantly pushing the limits of what's possible.
They are. Their commitment to innovation and patient care is really inspiring. You know what I find particularly fascinating?
What's that?
Their work on in vivo therapies, using lipid nanoparticles to deliver gene editing tools directly to specific organs like the liver. That's just mind-blowing.
I know, right? It opens up so many possibilities. We've talked about their programs for cardiovascular disease, but imagine the potential for treating other genetic disorders that affect different organs. It's a whole new frontier of medicine.
It really is. And it speaks volumes about the ingenuity and creativity of their scientific team.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But beyond the science, it's also important to acknowledge that CRISPR Therapeutics is very aware of the ethical considerations surrounding gene editing.
Right. It's a very powerful technology.
Right.
And with that power comes a great deal of responsibility.
Exactly.
But what's encouraging is that CRISPR has been actively engaged in discussions about responsible use transparency and addressing potential societal concerns.
It's good to hear that they're taking a thoughtful and proactive approach.
I agree. It's not just about the science. It's about using that science ethically and for the benefit of humanity.
Well said. Well, as we wrap up this deep dive into CRISPR Therapeutics, I'm left with a sense of awe and excitement for the future. What groundbreaking therapies might emerge from their research pipeline in the years to come? What other diseases might they conquer with this revolutionary technology? It's an exciting time to be following their progress.
It is. CRISPR Therapeutics is at the forefront of this gene editing revolution, and their work has the potential to transform the landscape of medicine and offer hope to millions of people around the world.
I completely agree. It's definitely a company to watch closely. So to all our listeners out there, I encourage you to keep exploring, keep learning, and stay tuned to Stock Explorers as we continue to track the incredible advancements happening in gene editing and beyond. Thanks for joining us on this deep